All right, thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. To learn more about grants for local boating enforcement, the Wisconsin DNR provides some cost-sharing grants to local governments and lake districts to help defray the costs of providing local boat enforcement. Many of you here may have already taken advantage of those programs. The DNR has requested some additional funding in order to support more cost-sharing grants for those looking to boost the state's capabilities to keep our lakes safe and sound. You're in the right place if you'd like to learn more about what makes for a successful cost-sharing request and to get your answers about local boating enforcement answered today. We have two speakers joining us. Lieutenant Darren Kuhn is the boating law administrator for the Wisconsin DNR. He oversees the state and federal recreational boating grants, which help support municipal partners in their local water patrol efforts to keep Wisconsin's waterways safe. Sergeant Chris Sinclair is joining us as well. He has worked for the Lauderdale Lakes Law Enforcement Patrol for 17 years. He's been part of the patrol's day-to-day operations, the training, administration, special assignments, and also serves as the department's court officer. Lieutenant Kuhn, would you like to start off the discussion today?
Yeah, I will. This topic leads itself so much for a good open dialogue, and because it's such a broad topic. So I did make some notes. I have some stuff that I want to formally present, but by no means, if you have questions, please ask them, because there's just so much information to try to cover in this short period of time. And with the two speakers, I'm giving a little different perspective on it. My guess is there's going to be some questions. So with that, some of the program basics. What is it? What is it all about? And in essence, these programs, this grant funding is available for local municipalities, whether it's cities, villages, counties, to go out and patrol local waterways. It's not necessarily for, well, it's not at all, going out there and just waving at people and saying hi and whatnot, although that is part of law enforcement's job, is the public relations, but it is law enforcement on the water. And to some degree, that comes with some citations and some paperwork, because every job we have has paperwork. So these counties or towns or cities will enter into an agreement. They have to put on X amount of patrol hours. They have to issue some citations. They have to track their number of contacts, accidents. They also help us out a great deal with boating safety classes. They're one of our conduits to instructing boating safety classes around the state. Right now, I don't have the exact number, but we are at over 100 boat patrols or municipal water patrols that are funded by this current grant. Now, if you think about it, we have 75 or 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin, and we have more than 100 different boat patrols. Shows that this is a very active program. I would say a very successful program, because it seems like every year we're getting requests from different municipalities that come in. These agencies vary in size. Milwaukee Police Department right now by far is our biggest. Milwaukee Harbor Patrol does phenomenal work, and they're out on the water probably more than any other agency in the state. And then we have smaller agencies. The one that points into my head right off the bat is the township of Stevenson in northern Marinette County, where they in essence go out and patrol a couple of small little lakes in northern Wisconsin. As a result, that these agencies, these programs, they're funded at this point at about 75% reimbursement. So these agencies will initially put in the funds, put in the time and the effort, and then once a year the state of Wisconsin will reimburse them up to 75%. We did put in and the governor, it's part of the governor's budget. How it plays out is still unknown, to up that reimbursement rate to 80%. But that 80%, that simple jump from 5% or 75% to 85%, that 5% jump was close to $900,000. So, I mean, when we're talking about the number of agencies that we have performing these duties and the amount of money that's getting shared with these these external partners from the DNR is really pretty substantial amount of money. We also, as part of this grant funding, allow these agencies to go out and purchase items, boats. If this is a boat patrol, municipal, harbor patrol, they're going to need a boat or multiple boats depending on the mission at hand, and that's something that we also work with them. We assist those agencies coming up with the proper platform on a smaller lake. A 50-acre lake that might not be open to any speeds greater than slow and awake. They certainly don't need a 40-foot patrol boat. And there's some common sense stuff that goes along with that, but pretty much the agency picks the boat that they want, gets some local approvals, and then the state reimburses those agencies for that patrol boat over a 5-year depreciation rate. And at the end of that 5 years, the boat is theirs free and clear to do with it as they see fit, to either trade it in or buy another one and sell it, or keep it for however long they see fit to do it. Seems like a lot of agencies that participate in this do have several boats. One, usually a smaller boat for some of their smaller bodies of water within a municipality, and then a larger boat for some of their larger bodies of water. But that often just depends on how active they are. And with this program, it seems like there's basically two systems of how agencies implement it. They either have a formal recreation patrol where their sheriff's deputies or police officers or town officers, that's all they do is recreation patrol, and they generally will split their time between boating and then ATV work in the summertime. Or they have staff that are come in on their days off, where they have an appreciation for boating and they enjoy their job as law enforcement officers, and they'll come in on their time off and work their patrol agency, their patrol bodies of water. For instance, I live in Northeast Wisconsin, live in Green Bay, and Green Bay Police Department, they have a boat patrol of 12 officers, and that's all guys coming in on their days off to supplement their normal patrol duties and patrol Green Bay and the Fox River in this local area. A lot of questions generally come up as far as why do we have this, or why can't the DNR just do it themselves? And that's a fair question. We certainly have enforcement on our bodies of water where we're assigned to work, but the fact of the matter is, right now we have about 150 field wardens in the state of Wisconsin. Of that 150 field wardens, boating is just a small portion of what they do in the summer. We have, ATV enforcement, ATV operating, ATV trails. Their primary season is mirrors boating season, when it's nice out and everyone's on summer vacation. And it doesn't really matter what community you're in, listening or watching this webinar. It seems like every county in the state is opening up more roads to ATV and UTV operation. So our field wardens are spending a ton of time in the summer dealing with ATVs, primarily accidents. So that takes them off the waters. Our field wardens also do spend a lot of time with recreational properties, our state parks and our state forests. And with the amount of time that our wardens spend in the parks and the forests, that again takes away time from any patrol duties that they may have on local bodies of water. You just look at the sheer numbers. We have 150 wardens in the field, and like I said earlier, we have about 100 municipal patrols. That's I guess what we would call a force multiplier. The goal for this program is to put police out on our water to keep our people safe and our property safe while out there. People are out there outdoor recreating, trying to have fun, minding their own business. But I think we all recognize the fact in today's society, if we just let that go without any sort of law enforcement presence, it very well could get Wild West status, and we're going to have people hurt. People are very commonly know how to drive cars. They've been driving cars most of their adult lives. But now we've seen a significant uptick in boat purchases and registered boats. And believe it or not, the state of Wisconsin ranks right now #2 in the country of number of registered boats. And if you start putting that into perspective, our boating season is 3 months long. And you look at the Floridas and the Californias and the Texas, all the southern states that pretty much have year-round summer, or at least their winters are similar to our spring. And we beat them on the number of registered boats. And taking into consideration, some of those states require registration of their paddle sports, their canoes and their kayaks, and Wisconsin does not. Wisconsin's in the driver's seat when it comes to boating, and to try to keep everybody safe on close to 15,000 inland lakes in the state of Wisconsin, 150 people can't do it. So we do rely a great deal on our partners, our police agencies, our town governments, our sheriff's offices to help us. Another thing that makes this program unique, and some listening may very well be part of this group or part of an organization, association, that you have individual local ordinances for your bodies of water. Some of the ones that are more common that I see on a daily basis are, some that require going clockwise or counterclockwise, specific direction of travel around the lake so that everyone's going the same direction. There's some that have sunset to sunrise restrictions as far as speed restrictions. Some have extended the state statute to slow no wake further than 200 feet out from a shoreline, for example. All these local ordinances are not enforceable by the warden service. And a lot of people don't recognize that. Conservation wardens, when they're out doing boat patrol or any of their daily functions, are only able to enforce state statutes or Wisconsin administrative codes. So if you have a specific body of water that has a specific rule that is more restrictive than what the state law says, I don't have the authority, or none of our enforcement people for the DNR have the authority to do anything about it. And that's where our external partners with this lake patrol grant come in, where if the township or the village or the city see fit that they need some additional restrictions to keep people safe, then that falls on their shoulders to patrol it. And without that patrol, an ordinance without enforcement isn't going to be followed. It's just the fact of the matter. And most of the time, it seems like our people out on the boats, 99%, I would think, and I think Sergeant Sinclair will agree, is that they're just out there having fun, and they're not even recognizing that some of the actions that they're doing are creating a safety concern. They're not out there trying to cause trouble, but we all know actions have consequences, both good and bad. And the fact that people aren't necessarily all that familiar with boats and the dynamics of boats and stopping distances, and there isn't safety equipment on boats, I can make an argument that driving a boat is probably more dangerous than driving a car, for the simple fact that we all know how to drive a car. We know that where the brake is. We know where the gas pedal is. We know what to do if a deer runs out in front of us. But when you take it to the boating world and throw in, obviously a deer's not going to run out in front of somebody on a boat, but clearly there could be a log or something floating, or a water skier that just fell in front of you, and there's no brakes to hit. And if you turn certain boats too hard, you're going to capsize, and now we're going to have people in the water. And without our municipal partners taking part in these programs and taking advantage of these opportunities, I think we would be falling a little short as far as trying to keep people safe. So I guess with that, it's so vague that I guess I would open it up if anyone has any questions or specifics about boat safety or specifics about the program. I probably have the answers for that. But as far as going into more detail on, some of this money comes from the federal government, some comes from the state government, and starting to break down on the application processes, I don't think anyone wants to hear about the exciting world of grant writing and putting in for these different grants that the state has to do so that the municipalities can get this money and funding to help us out. So open it up to any questions on that end.
Yeah, I'll just mention that people are welcome to unmute. Please stay muted while the presenters are talking today, but otherwise, if you'd like to unmute and ask a question, you can, or type a question into the chat window and I will read that to the presenters from there. Looks like Larry just unmuted, so go ahead, Larry, if you have a question.
Yeah, it's just an enforcement related question, and maybe you want to answer this at the end. I am curious if the state of Wisconsin has looked at all into what to do about the wake boats and the damage they cause to shoreline, etc. piers. We've had a lot of pier damage on our lake. Associated boats tied up to the piers have been damaged, and of course the shoreline erosion. Has the state made any progress in this area?
I guess depends on your definition of progress. This is a tough one where we're not really in a position to ban a certain type of boat. And I sort of equate the wakeboard boats and the problems that are here with jet skis how many years ago. It seemed like, when I was a younger warden and dealing with personal watercraft and the jet skis really were popular, if you didn't know better, you'd think it was going to be the end of the world because jet skis were going to ruin boating for everybody. But that turned out that we worked through it and we got through it. And I think wakeboard boats is going to be the same thing. There's no doubt at all that some of these guys that wakeboard and do these activities are causing shoreline damage, and they're certainly causing damage to boats tied to docks. But we really need to concentrate on those individuals than on the sport and the boats themselves. We've really been leaving it up as the state to the local municipalities to figure this, well, not necessarily to figure it out, because I don't think anyone is going to figure this out individually. This is a nationwide issue. And as a boating law administrator, there's boating law administrators in every state in the country. And pretty much on a weekly basis, we're having the same conversation of what is this state doing or what is a different state doing and how can we help this, because we're all experiencing the same thing when it's coming to the wakeboard boats. As I said a little bit ago, I think 99% of our boating public are good people and not trying to cause problems. And for those people, we're finding that with the wakeboard boats in the industry, just educating them on the fact of, yes, you're having fun and you're doing what you want to do, but as a result, this is what's also happening. A lot of people were unaware of the damage that was being caused to shorelines because they're off doing their thing and not paying any attention to it. So education has helped with that. Is it going to solve the problem? Absolutely not. What I've seen a lot of the local agencies do, or local municipalities, is increase the distance from shore, that either slow no wake speeds completely, so all fast moving boats need to go further out, or specific to towing or wakeboard boats generating an artificial wake, or operating at a high displacement mode or transition speed, so that these large wakes are created. Seems like a generality seems to be about 200 feet. Some I've seen 300 feet, but if you move them further away from shore, then they have a tendency of wakes dissipating to more normal height by the time they actually hit shore. But at this point, is there a solution that's going to make everybody happy? Absolutely not. And that's sort of the kicker here is, as a state agency, we're responsible to keep the environment safe and keep people safe, but yet still recognize the fact that this is a sport and it's here. I think it caught all of us sort of by surprise that all of a sudden it was here, and how quickly it has spread. But I can assure you that the state of Wisconsin is aware of it. I'm sure Sergeant Sinclair probably in the Southeast, I know there's a lot of that activity, probably more so than in the North, but it's a problem. And the problem is we're trying to weigh the industry and the dealers and all the people that enjoy the wakeboarding, and at the same time trying to protect people's property and boats. There are specific state laws I certainly can send you some stuff, offline if you'd want, but some specific state laws reference, a boater is responsible for any damage that their wake creates. There's also some speed restrictions that keep them by state law 100 feet away from any raft, dock, or pier, and thus the municipality is making it a little further out. But there are some state laws to address that, and in the areas where it's become a significant problem, I think those state laws are being applied, at least by our wardens, and I'm sure our local patrols are certainly doing what they can do. But it's not an easy fix, and it's not going to be a solution that happens tomorrow. That I can assure you. But we're aware of it, and we're trying to come to some consistency with all the parties involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See another question in the chat. How can lake safety be managed when there isn't enough law enforcement to police or manage increased traffic?
A lot of times our wardens, and I don't want to speak, for other agencies, because 25 years ago I was worked for a different agency, but ever since then I've been a warden. So I'll speak, reference our wardens. A lot of times we don't know there's a problem on a particular body of water or a particular area in our work sectors without people letting us know. So if I concentrate on this particular body of water, say Lake X, because I know there's issues there, but Lake Y sort of gets ignored, what I would ask is that you contact your local law enforcement. If your local sheriff's office or police department or village or township has a lake patrol, let them know. Get a hold of them and let them know. Let your local DNR warden know. And if you don't know who your local DNR warden is, the easiest way is to contact our tip line, the 1-800-TIP-WDNR, and let them know what body of water and what your complaint is and what the problem is, and they will reach out to you and let you know what they can do, and they would be responsive. And our warden staff, our work rules require us to contact those complainants, and then we also generally will give a disposition. So if we made contact with somebody that's causing the problems, we would let you know what happened, and that's confidential. We certainly aren't going to say, well, Mary Smith told us that you were doing this. That's not good police work, and we won't do that. We'll keep it confidential to the best of our abilities. But other than that, a lot of times the lake associations will reach out in proactive campaigns and put stuff in their newsletters or post things at boat landings. The department has some different publications that are available for different municipalities or lake associations to post at boat landings, just sort of as an FYI for people. But I think generally, you're absolutely right. Law enforcement in general is understaffed. But most of our patrol efforts are based on citizen complaints. So if there's a citizen that calls in, we're going to respect the fact that they took the time and effort, and the concern is big enough to let us know about, and we're going to investigate it and deal with it to the best of our ability. So that would be my suggestion, is let your local agencies know, or let your local wardens know that there's a problem, because we may not be aware of it.
Okay, I think we'll take one more question for Lieutenant Kuhn right now, and then we'll move on to Sergeant Sinclair, make sure he has enough time to do his part as well. So the next question in the chat was, can a lake district apply for this type of grant? And if you could also just touch on, from your perspective, what makes a strong application compared to a weak application?
The grants, that I've been talking about generally will go through, it's a lake district. I guess I would need more clarification. A sanitary district can apply, a rehabilitation district can apply, just a lake association themselves, not necessarily. Basically, it's got to be some sort of unit of government, because what ultimately is going to happen is this unit of government is going to create ordinances that are going to restrict public's activities. So it just can't be a group of 4 people saying that they're now have a lake association, and we want our rules passed. So it's got to be some sort of a smaller, any sort of governmental body that can pass rules and pass ordinances. A strong application, high user pressure with a lot of concerns would be, what if you're a new applicant. I would hate to say an area that has a lot of accidents, but an area that has a lot of personal injury accidents is going to come to the top of the list. And those have to be reportable accidents, because what we find is, we had 50 accidents last year. Well, how many of those are reported? Well, none of them. Well, why not? If this is a boat accident, we need to know about this, and it needs to file a police report or DNR report that it's a boat accident, because otherwise there's no documentation to prove that there was in fact 50 accidents. But accidents would be a top priority, public safety. Otherwise, high user pressure with user conflict would be another, probably another avenue that would put you to the top of a list.
Okay, thank you. And Larry just clarified in the chat, when Donna was mentioning a lake district, I believe she was referring to a protection and rehabilitation district on the lake.
Then absolutely they could.
Yep, okay. And there's another question in the chat. I think we'll leave it for later. After Sergeant Sinclair talks for a while, we'll have some more questions at the end. We can just bring that question forward later on. So Sergeant Sinclair, if you'd like to go ahead and share your story from Lauderdale Lakes.
Well, I have to caution you guys first, don't let me talk for a while, because I am one of those people that will talk much longer than people really want to listen. So feel free to unmute yourself and tell me that I'm done. What I thought that I would do in my portion is I would give you my story and sort of how I wound up being where I am, and then how the Lauderdale Lakes Law Enforcement Patrol came into being kind of along the same time. I got into law enforcement, and I am a part-time law enforcement officer. I have never worked full-time in law enforcement. My real job is I am a ditch digger. My mother's so proud of me when I say that, but I actually work for an excavation company full-time, and I do law enforcement part-time. When my wife and I had children, we needed a little bit of extra money because she decided to stay home. And what great weekends and nighttime jobs are out there other than bartending? Well, there's really only law enforcement. So I kind of waddled my way into law enforcement, and I found all of these boat patrols here in Wisconsin that exist for 5-6 months out of the year, nights and weekends patrolling water. I've spent most of my life recreating around water. I was a lifeguard in high school, and I did barefoot water skiing competitions as a youth, and I'm paying for that every morning when I roll out of bed now. But so I've been around the water for most of my life. So applying for these water patrol jobs really worked out well into my life. That brings me to the Lauderdale Lakes Law Enforcement Patrol. In 2001, I believe the story goes, the Lake District for the Lauderdale Lakes wanted to start a water patrol. Prior to that, the town of LaGrange had been patrolling the waters around the Lauderdale Lakes, and the Lauderdale Lakes are 3 very large bodies of water, as well as a 4th non-connected smaller body of water that's just slow no wake only. But to give you an idea of how large the bodies of waters are, there's approximately 1,000 houses that have direct lake access, and then there's another 400 properties that have off lake access to those 3 large bodies of water. So if you put 4 people in each one of the houses, we pretty much have a town of about 4,000 people wandering around those 3 bodies of water every weekend for most of the summer. Add into the fact that we're about 2.5 hours from the Metro Chicago area, and you have a, what is the term that the lieutenant used? High user pressure. I'm going to be stealing that term, by the way. We do have high user pressure, which means we've got a lot of people, we've got a lot of boats. We have a lot of conflicts. Again, the term that the lieutenant used, I would have used the term accidents, which is what is in my notes here. Knock on wood, the accidents have gone down considerably since the founding of the patrol, and that is pretty much the reason the patrol exists. There not only is a perceived large amount of conflicts, but there are a number of incidents every year, and the Lake District elected officials are aware of that, and it's the patrol's job to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And as Lieutenant mentioned, education is probably paramount with the patrol. We run at least 2 boater safety classes every year. We even tried to run them virtually during COVID. That didn't work out particularly well, but we have 2 officers on staff that what they do is they do the teaching, they wrangle the kids, they take care and they make sure that the next generation of boaters understand what's expected of them. And hopefully there's a little bit more parity along with operating an automobile that goes along with operating a boat, at least in the Lauderdale's area. Our program is funded two different ways. One, through tax levies that are levied by the Lake District itself, and then through the DNR grants that we're talking about. Dollar-wise, I would say that the DNR probably supports about 55% of my patrol's operations, with that number changing depending on weather and staff hours and things like that. So it kind of goes back and forth. Also, the equipment needs that the patrol might have, as well as whatever mission the elected officials want us to be performing. For instance, we do a lot of assistance work with the Town of LaGrange Fire Department. We try to be on scene with rescue calls and stuff, even that are adjacent to the lake, not just on the water, but that would be accessible by pier from our patrol boats. So those types of things, although not directly reimbursable, are part of my water patrol's, and I guess I'll say job or mission. I'm overseen by a chief who is overseen by the Lake District elected officials who work in conjunction with the Town of LaGrange elected officials. So if you're wondering how many bosses I have, I would say that I have about 17, and with each one of them believing that that I directly report to them. But they, in all seriousness, they do work well together. There's a lot of coordination between things that the township wants and things that the Lake District wants. The wakeboard boats came up, and that's been a topic of discussion now for a couple of years. Here at Lauderdale, we don't have the answer for that question either, but we're definitely waiting for somebody else to come up with it, or we're willing to have the conversation. So that's something that's ongoing. We try to work as much as we can with the DNR wardens in the area. The local warden at least comes out and rides with us at least 2 or 3 times a year. One, to kind of get a feel for what we at the patrol are doing, but also to let us know what trends are going on in other places in the state, and so that we can kind of be aware of that sort of stuff too. One of the notes that was given to me prior to preparing this was the question is, what are some indicators of success? And being an engineer type person, the first words that I heard after that was, I was thinking statistics. But in the end, it really has more to do with perceptions, and perceptions not just of the people that I report to, the elected officials, but the perceptions of the general public utilizing the waters. I said that there's about 1,000 homes on the lakes that I patrol, but there are also 3 public boat launches, and those boat launch parking lots are full every weekend. So we probably see the better part of 100 unfamiliar boats, or people that are potentially unfamiliar with the waters out there, and how they feel their boating experience is, I think is one of the things that I look at to be an indicator of my success. The patrol, although we stress safety and we want to educate people, like the lieutenant mentioned, sometimes there are citations involved, but even while issuing a citation, we want to make the citation process also an education process. The goal is, if you write 1 citation, you might not have to write 9 other ones. And more importantly, you definitely don't have to write an accident report or deal with, you know, heaven forbid, a death or something like that on the water. So I would say that the indicator of success is what the general public actually views using the water is like to them. And then the last point that I was given before preparing this was, what advice would I give to other lake organizations to consider starting a similar program? I really can't imagine a better success story than the Lauderdale Lakes Law Enforcement Patrol. I believe that they set out for specific goals of increasing safety, you know, being budget conscious and that kind of stuff, but to increase the safety of people using the waters. And I really think that all of the time and the effort and dealing with the budgets and dealing with the people and dealing with the staffing, and, you know, there's always politics that go along with anything in that whole realm. It's definitely worth the time and effort. Thinking back to my youth and some of the smaller lakes that I might have played on, a patrol similar to what Lauderdale has, or that I've seen run on other lakes in southeastern Wisconsin here, would have made a huge difference on what I saw go on those lakes. You know, and I'll date myself here. I'm a child of the 70s, and some of the things that was done out on the water in the 70s, I'm really surprised that we didn't pull more bodies out of the water. So if you're thinking safety and you're thinking, you know, the lake that you're looking at as being a long-term recreation point, I would say that getting into this program would be nothing but a good endeavor. I see the chat's going wild over here.
Yeah, I see a couple of questions that I think are more for Lieutenant Kuhn. I guess, Sergeant Sinclair, did you want to say anything else before we get into the questions that are in there?
No, I'm hoping that people have questions for me and I can be a little bit more specific to specific questions.
Okay. So Lieutenant Kuhn, there's a few people that mentioned they'd be interested in receiving any information on Wisconsin laws that apply to wake boats and damage caused by boats. They gave their emails. I know you're joining from a phone. If you'd like, I could just send you those emails in an email, so you have those instead of copying them down. I see you're muted right now.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, if you could just send those, they're popping up on my phone, and I honestly couldn't read them fast enough as they were coming. So if you can just compile those emails or addresses and then send them my direction, I will get some of the data that's out there that the state has been collecting over the last couple of years to whoever's interested.
Okay, and if anyone else would like that information, just put your email in the chat. You can send a message directly to me if you'd like, with your email address in it. Couple other questions for you, Lieutenant. What is the process for increasing the size of a current grant?
Really isn't a process. We are set that the amount of grant money is statutorily set. So we get X amount of dollars for every fiscal year, and that amount of money, how much gets divvied out and to whom, basically goes down to how many patrols and their patrol activities, with a cap. We're not gonna, at this point, we can't pay more than 75%. And if we did cover more than 75%, Milwaukee PD would take all of it, because they are out. They're the amount of money that they put into their harbor patrol is insane compared to anywhere else. So at no point will it currently go over 75%. That was the legislation that was in the governor's budget, was to raise it to 80%. So basically, increase the amount of the grant is through legislation, and the governor took a stab at it at raising it 5%. And I guess we'll see where the legislator goes through the budget process.
Okay, the next question was about the purpose of the grants. Is the purpose for safety and enforcement, or does it include any environmental issues such as invasive species?
No, this particular grant is safety and enforcement. A majority of this funding comes through the United States Coast Guard, who certainly has an environmental unit, but this money is specific to law enforcement, education, and public safety, not aquatic invasives. There are certainly grants out there available, but this isn't what we're talking about today.
I can speak a little bit about the invasive species and even some of the special areas, environmental areas that you might want to protect. The Lauderdale Lakes has several specific areas that there's no boating traffic or limited boating traffic, as well as a separate invasive species, and I'll call them a task force that works to make sure that people come in with clean boats and leave with clean boats and things like that. And I do believe that there are other DNR grant programs to work with that, as well as I know in the protected areas to maintain those areas and do surveys and stuff like that. Although not this particular topic, the DNR would be the place to start for those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. The DNR certainly has all sorts of grant money, as does different federal programs to combat aquatic invasives. But yeah, this particular grant funding is for law enforcement and boat safety.
Yeah, check out the surface water grants program within DNR if you're interested in invasive species grants.
And
yeah,
I saw the comments about the wakeboard boats, and I come from a water skiing background. The idea of putting a couple 100 pounds of water into the back of a boat to make more wake is a little bit foreign to me. But over the past 17 years, the invention of the wake boat was definitely something that I didn't see coming. But on the Lauderdale Lakes, I would say that a full 75% of the boats that I would see on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon would be one of these wakeboard boats. I can definitely testify to the 6-foot swells in the middle of the lake and the whitecaps smashing against the shores. It's not something that isn't noticed by the general public, and it's not something that isn't noticed by law enforcement. I think where our conversation sometimes goes astray is that we forget that the people that are doing this are doing it because they're having fun doing it. Just like something that I might do that you might think is ridiculous, I don't. And somewhere along the line, the conversation with the people has to begin with the, hey, you want to keep wakeboarding, we want to keep fishing, or we want to keep, you know, sitting on the pontoon boat, and we all have to kind of share the same space. And kind of along the lines, like the lieutenant mentioned with the jet skis previously, there'll somehow, some way, we as human beings will figure out that we're all trying to have fun, and that nobody wants to ruin anything. I think right now what we're seeing is that the technology in the boats is changing so fast, and people aren't figuring out how to use it properly. And by properly, I don't mean legally or illegally. I just mean so that they don't do more damage than they might actually intend. So that's my soapbox speech from the land of wakeboard boats.
Great, thank you. And I think the next question is for you also, Sergeant St. Clair. Paul and Julie in the chat mentioned their lakes pull from county sheriffs. They're wondering if, other than yourself, are your peers, do they tend to be from law enforcement backgrounds, or are they more like you, where they do it part-time and work somewhere else during the day?
We're pretty evenly split. We have 22 sworn officers at Lauderdale Lakes. I'm trying to think. I have a professional landscaper. I have a middle school teacher, but I also have half a dozen law enforcement officers that work in other departments, smaller police departments, or even relatively large police department as well. We've had retired state troopers. So it's a pretty good mix of people. There are a number of lakes down here in southeastern Wisconsin that are specifically, the water patrols are set up by the county sheriff, and they're run by the sheriffs. So they would use deputies. From my experience, having that mix of people gets you your different outlooks on life, and probably a little bit more balanced attitude when it comes to enforcement. I'll pick on my state trooper friends. My state trooper friends really like to issue citations, whereas my middle school teacher friends probably don't. So somewhere in there, we find a good balance.
You know, if I can just add to piggyback on that a little bit, is these recreational patrols also provides an opportunity for some young law enforcement officers. A young officer that may have just graduated from the police academy and is trying to get that first law enforcement job. I know I started back in 1995 with the DNR as an LTE boat patrol operator. I know we just hired with the Wisconsin DNR a couple of Lauderdale Lake former officers from the boat patrol as full-time conservation wardens. So these programs, not only do they provide, protection and safety for the public and to the properties and everything and on individual bodies, but it also does provide a platform for future law enforcement officers, whether it's conservation wardens or county sheriffs, which is another nice aspect of this, that it not only protects the public safety, but it also can be a springboard for somebody's career.
I don't see any more questions in the chat yet, so I guess we can wait a minute and see if others have any questions that they'd like to put in there.
And then Paul, like I said earlier before we started, I'm sort of new to this Zoom world, and certainly I'm not a technological genius. So the screen I'm currently looking at, I would have no idea how to send my email. So if you could just send my email to whoever wants it, or to whoever's watching, that would be much appreciated.
Sure, okay.
And feel free to do the same with my email.
Okay. I will grab those right now and put them into the chat. Looks like it's gonna make me stop sharing my screen. So don't worry, your screen's gonna change a little bit, but we're still all here. So again, if anyone has any further questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll grab those emails here and I'll put them in there.
I definitely need to adjust my Zoom basic picture. I don't have anything as cool as some of these people do. I just have a picture of myself sitting there. I'm definitely doing this wrong.
Well, I'm hoping to get back to a situation where we can all meet in person at a conference room somewhere.
I agree. I think the learning opportunity is far greater in a situation like that.
All right, I've got both of their emails in the chat now. Not seeing any more questions. So either of you have any closing thoughts?
Appreciate the time and interest. And once I get in front of my computer tomorrow, I will start sending out replies to those messages that people had questions for. Otherwise, I'm going to get to my daughter's soccer game.
And I'll mirror the same comments. Thanks everybody for the opportunity. If there are questions that pop up, or you do start down the process to utilizing some of this grant money, and you say, "Oh, I remember that one guy that talked about it," feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help out well into the future if need be.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Lieutenant Kuhn and Sergeant Sinclair, for your help with the webinar today. I did record this, so everyone listening, if you would like to share it with anybody else that wasn't able to make it, I will be posting it to the Extension Lakes YouTube channel by tomorrow, so you can find it there and share it with others. If you can't find it, feel free to email me or contact anybody at the Lakes Partnership office here and we can get it to you. With that, thank you again for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thanks again.
Thank you.